What we're going to do now is we're going to put hyperbolas from standard form into vertex form. So we're getting them ready to graph for our next lesson. In this case, what we have is a equation in standard form. First thing that we're going to do is factor out the 4, and then we factor out the negative 9. Notice that it went from a positive to a negative. Then we find our new c value. Remember, we take our b value, divide it by 2, and square it. So negative 10 divided by 2 squared gives us 25. Negative 4 divided by 2 and squared gives us 4. Then what we do is we take the 4 and the 25, which gives us 100. The negative 9 and the 4 gives us negative 36. We factor, and then what we do is we divide it by 72 at the very end to get 18 and 8 as our denominators. So looking at example 1, first thing that we're going to do is we're going to find our new c values. So that becomes x squared minus 2x plus 1. Take the negative 2, divide it by 2, and square it. Here we're going to factor out a negative 1, and that gives us y squared minus 6y. I'm going to take the 6, divide it by 2, which is negative 3, squared, which is 9. And that's equal to 10 plus 1 minus 9. Remember, there is a negative in the front, so make sure that it's a negative 9. We're going to factor it, so that gives us x minus 1 squared and y minus 3 squared equals, and then that gives us 11 minus 9, which is 2. Going to divide each side by 2. And what we have is x minus 1 squared over 2 minus y minus 3 squared over 2 equals 1. For the next one, what we have to do is we have to reorganize it. So I'm going to put my y's first because they're positive. So what I have is 2y squared minus 32y minus 3x squared plus 12x equals negative 98. Factor out a 2, and that gives me y squared minus 16y. I'm going to take the negative 16 divided by 2 and square it, and that gives me 64. I'm going to factor out a negative 3, and that's x squared minus 4x divided by 2 and square it. That gives me a 4 equals negative 98 plus 2 times 64 is 128. Negative 3 times 4 is negative 12. I'm going to factor it, and that gives me y minus 8 squared minus 3x minus 2 squared equals, and that's going to give me an 18. Then I divide everything by 18. And so my final answer is going to be y minus 8 squared over 9 minus x minus 2 squared over 6 equals 1. So for letter C, I notice that my y is positive, so I'm going to have the 5y squared plus 10y. I'm going to bring over the 4x squared, so negative 4x squared plus 32x, and then I'm going to bring the 79 on the other side, equals 79. I'm going to factor out a 5, so 5, and then y squared plus 2y. Divide the 2 by 2, which is 1, squared is 1. Then I'm going to factor out a negative 4, and that gives me a negative x squared minus 8x divided by 2 and square it, which gives me 16, equals, and we have the 79. We have 5 times 1, which is 5. We have negative 4 times 16, which is negative 64. So when I factor it, I have 5y plus 1 squared minus 4x minus 4 squared is equal to 20. Then I'm going to divide each side by 20. And that gives me a final answer of y plus 1 squared over 4 minus x minus 4 squared over 5 equals 1. So our last one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the 4 over. And so I have 8y squared minus 16y minus 4x squared plus 40x. And then I'm going to bring the 4 over, so it's negative 4. Then I'm going to factor out an 8. And I get y squared minus 2y divided by 2 and square it, which is 1. Then I factor out a 4, and I get x squared minus 10x divided by 2 and square it, which is 25. That gives me negative 4. 8 times 1 gives me an 8. Negative 4 times 25 is negative 100. So when I factor it, I have y minus 1 squared. I have the x minus 5 squared. And that right there gives me negative 96. So I'm going to divide it by negative 96. And whenever I divide by a negative, what happens is that the signs switch. So I'm no longer going to have my y in the front. I'm going to have my x in the front. So I'm now going to put negative negative as a positive. So I'm going to put the x minus 5 squared over 24. And then I'm going to put minus, and then I have the y minus 1, because a negative and a positive is a negative. Squared gives me a 12 equals 1.